Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Friending the Mirror. I'm Don Shaw and I am so happy to be back with you again today. I'm also really excited to have a very special guest. Well, all my guests are special, but this one happens to be Dr. Angela Lauria. And let me tell you a little bit about Angela. The title of today's episode is The Connection Between Body, Mind, and Self-Sabotage. Dr. Angela Lauria has earned a PhD in communications. She is the founder of the Author Incubator and creator of the Your Delicious Book program, publishing as Difference Press. She has helped dozens of coaches write and publish their first books. She is herself an author, and her own books include The Difference, 10 Essentials to Freeing Your Inner Author and Writing a Book That Matters, and another book, If I'm So Smart, Why Can't I Be Happy? In addition, she holds several coaching certificates and has spoken at a number of conferences about releasing your inner author and successfully completing your book. Angela and Difference Press has published both of my books, the memoir Facing Up to It and my Kindle book, Friending the Mirror, and will be publishing my third book later this year. What compelled me to invite Angela to my webinar, however, had nothing to do with publishing. For about half her adult life, Angela was about 100 pounds overweight. She was miserable. She hated how she looked, hated carrying that extra fat around. So she lost 100 pounds. But then she gained it back, lost it again, gained it back. This went on until she finally came to a realization, which I will let her explain herself. Angela, I am so happy today. Welcome.
Oh my God, Don, thank you for having me. And I love that introduction because when you say that I was 100 pounds overweight for half of my adult life, it makes it seem like, until I was 25, that, I was a normal weight. It makes it seem like that. But no, it was half of my life because I was always overweight as a kid. I lost 100 pounds for the first time when I was 21. And then I would take me about a year to lose it, about 3 months to gain it back, and then I'd wait about 2 years and I'd lose it again. So when I figured out the amount of time that I was 100 pounds overweight versus at a lower weight, it was about half the time, but it was the ultimate in yo-yo dieting. And after the fourth time I lost 100 pounds, when I gained it back, I just made a decision. I would rather stay fat. I know there are some reasons not to be fat, some health reasons, whatever, but the pain and discomfort of being fat, the amount that I hated myself when I walked by a mirror, or if I was with a bunch of friends and they were doing something like bungee jumping or taking a roller coaster ride knowing I couldn't participate, that pain was nothing compared to the pain of gaining weight back after I'd lost it. So the big decision was, I'm just going to choose to be fat. I'm just going to choose this. I am never losing weight again unless I know it's going to be permanent. And so when I made the decision to lose the weight for the last time, that was in 2007 when I learned the technique I'll tell you guys a little bit about today. And I actually lost the weight slowly between 2007 and 2012. So instead of taking a year to lose the weight, it took me about 5 years. But I knew the way I was doing it was going to be the last time I did it. So that was really the big realization, is I'm never going to do this again unless I figure out how to make it permanent.
So you did figure out how to make it permanent, and I would like you to talk about what prompted you to make that decision to lose the weight for the final time.
Yeah, I have a son, and I had this recurring image of my son's wedding day, and I really wanted it to be about him. and not for there not to have to be some special arrangements because I was so fat. Like I didn't want to have to be airlifted in. I didn't want there to be like I would have to be in a wheelchair for the dance, and we'd have to do wheelchair choreography. It's so far off in the future. He's only 9 now, but I just wanted to be healthy for my kid, and that was really a very important and very clear goal, which I do think was part of the process for me. It stopped being about the weight, and it started being about me being the best person I could be for my kid. And there was a long part of this process where I had to give up on losing weight. I had to learn to be 100% fine in the body I had right now before any weight loss started.
So you're talking about the psychological aspects of you. That's an interesting concept, the idea that in order for you to lose weight, you had to be okay with yourself when
Oh no,
you
I
had
could lose weight. I had proved that. I did Weight Watchers, I did Jenny Craig, I did Nutrisystem. Like those, and in case anybody is wondering, they all work. It takes about a year to lose 100 pounds. I think it took me about between 8 months and a year. But it's like it wasn't real. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like it didn't count because I was doing it from the outside. So I still hated myself just as much when I walked by a window. It was never enough. Like there are a lot of people out there who, if they weighed, I weigh about 180 pounds right now. And there are a lot of people who would die. They would feel so overweight at 180 pounds. My top weight was 315, so I'm pretty happy with this. But it's not like I'm, some skinny girl now. I wear size 12. I just stopped making it about the weight loss. It was 100% the psychological issues. And the weight loss is now just a byproduct. When I finally lost weight is when it totally 100% didn't matter. And I realized that whole story about ruining my kid's wedding or whatever it was, like that was just a story. And once I figured out that those psychological connections, that's when I lost weight, and it totally didn't matter, as opposed to before when I was like, oh my God, did I lose a pound this week? Did I lose 2 pounds this week? Did I gain a pound this week? I dropped that whole game.
So let me ask you a quick question. I mean, genetics are often blamed for people being overweight. Did genetics play a factor for you at all?
So 100%. So I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism after my son was born. I had gained 85 pounds with the pregnancy, so I wasn't skinny anyway when I went into the pregnancy, and then I gained 85 pounds. And my doctor explained to me it was going to be impossible for me to lose weight. She said I would need to eat 800 calories a day and work out at least twice a day, and that still wouldn't be enough. And when I started on this weight loss journey this last time, I was pretty convinced that genetics had me in a box, 100%. And the thing is, there are definitely some limitation. I think it was harder for me. I think there are some people that are naturally thin or have genes that work that way, and I don't have those genes. But I got hooked into that genetic story. And the truth is, I could be thinner. I might not be skinny. I might not, it might not be naturally, natural for me to be as thin as somebody else. But I feel like I'm at the weight that I want to be that expresses who I am in the world, and I'm not covering up who I am with fat. So yes, genetics is a part of it, but once I dealt with the psychological issues, the genetics piece, I think, is smaller than I thought it was. And in my head, I'd made it much bigger.
Well, one of the things you mentioned that your doctor told you that it would be basically impossible for you to lose weight. Now I hear that, and it just makes me so mad. I mean, here you are having these challenges anyway, and now you're having it reinforced by a doctor who says, oh well, this is it. This is the way you're going to be. And I mean, talk about just another hurdle to
Well,
overcome.
yeah, she didn't even want me to quit. She just wanted me to put into my schedule and my lifestyle eating 800 calories a day and working out with a personal trainer twice a day for an hour. And I was like, girl, I don't think that's going to happen. Like, I had a newborn. Like, it was just not what I thought I could do or promise. And so yeah, that was really where we ran into some issues. She meant well. She was just like, look, it's going to be a lot harder for you. So if you really want to lose weight, let's figure out how you can work out twice a day and eat 800 calories. Okay.
Okay, so she was supportive. She just told you it was going to be kind of a challenge.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me then, you obviously found whatever psychological trigger you needed, you found it. Can you tell us about that and what made you able to lose the weight for the final time?
Yeah. So first of all, what I need to explain is I found a book that really changed my life, and I am a big fan of books that change people's lives, including yours. So the book is If I'm So Smart, Why Can't I Lose Weight? By a woman named Brooke Castillo, who is a weight loss coach. And in this book, Brooke says the reason you are overweight is because you are eating more than your body requires for fuel, which sounded true to me. Eat less and exercise more. Like that pretty much was the message I had been getting everywhere. But then what she went on to explain is the reason you're eating more than your body requires for fuel is that you're using food to address lies that you are telling yourself about what you want in your life, about who you are in the world, about your feelings, about people around you. So if I was upset with someone, I would eat. If I was happy with something, I would eat. If I was any sort of emotion, I didn't know how to have or hold or express those emotions. And so really the first 5 years of this journey was learning how to feel my feelings and just say, like, right now, how do I feel? And that literally took me 5 years. And maybe for lots of people that's super easy. But for me, making that mind-body connection, you mentioned I have a PhD. The mind thing, I got that all day long. Like, read 100 philosophy books this afternoon, I'm on it. But feeling my feelings, that was my real PhD. Getting my PhD was easy compared to this.
So getting in touch with your feelings, I mean, that's not an easy process. I understand it. I had to do it when I wrote my memoir, and it was hard, and I still don't feel like maybe my memoir went quite as deep as it could have gone. So what did you use? What techniques did you use? What helpers, inspirations, how did you do it?
So Brooke is a life coach. She runs the life coach school, and she was also trained by Martha Beck as a life coach. And she uses a lot of thought work techniques. So she has a book called Self-Coaching 101, where she teaches you how to identify your thoughts. And then what she says is find a better feeling thought. So for instance, what I would do is I wouldn't know I was feeling anything, but I would feel overwhelmed or anxious because of a thought. So it was actually the thought and my belief about that thought that was creating these emotions that were leading me to eat. And so by identifying the underlying thought that created the emotion, I was able to find a different thought that was true or truer. That sounds pretty complicated, but I'll give you a really easy example. So I worked in an office that was like a cubicle office, and there was duct work. So above the office there was a drop tile ceiling, and then in the drop tile there was a duct. Well, the duct work went to the computer room, and one day there was a guy in the computer room who was the IT guy, and he was whistling. And what he didn't realize is his whistling was traveling through the ductwork right into my cubicle, probably other people's cubicle, but my cubicle. And I wanted to kill him with my hands. I was so frustrated by all the whistling when I was trying to get work done. And I just thought it was so rude that he would like be whistling. Now I'm sure this guy didn't realize I could hear him or that he was ruining my life. So I had this thought, this guy shouldn't be whistling. And then I had like a series of emotions about that. Like I was indignant and frustrated and I was pissed off and I had all these emotions about the fact that this guy shouldn't be whistling. And then I wanted to take action. I wanted to go into the IT room, but it was locked. So I wanted to call his boss and I was trying to come up with the action plan to solve this. And in the process of coming up with the action plan, I was like, the girl at the cube next to me happened to have a plate of brownies. So I was bitching about this, and I was eating a caramel turtle brownie, which was delicious, while I'm talking about how awful this guy is who's ruining my day by whistling. And I really thought, first of all, I didn't connect the eating to my emotions at all. And I really thought it was a clear fact this guy was out of line and shouldn't have been whistling. But when I went through and did the work that Brooke recommends, I realized that it was my feelings. The circumstance was the guy was whistling, but it was really my thought he shouldn't be whistling or it's rude to whistle that was the problem. And so when I could change that thought a little to, I don't know, I work in an office where there's lots of background noise, then I would just get headphones instead of eating the brownies. Like I could just move on without getting so spun up in all these emotions. And that little story was just like one little story. It was happening all day, every day, sitting in traffic, getting into a fight with my mother, if I got blown off by a friend or a friend was late to meet me, if somebody got a promotion and I didn't get a promotion, like all day long. I was having all these emotions that I didn't know were emotions. I thought they were facts. I thought I was just being wronged and screwed over all day, and that I was this victim of these terrible things that were happening, like happy men whistling in the computer room. And so once I could sort of change that story and take accountability for my own life, then I just stopped using food as a crutch that I didn't even realize I was doing. And that's why I lost weight so slowly, because there was no diet plan, there was no, protein and veggies and no carbs and no sugar. There was nothing. I just really focused on eating food to fuel my body whenever I wanted it and checking in with my thoughts to see if my thoughts were what were making me hungry instead of actual physical hunger.
So let me summarize what I think you just said. What I heard you say is that once you realized that eating was an emotional response and was able to kind of put a stop to that, then eating just became more of I'm eating because I need to eat because I'm hungry and my body needs fuel. So is that what you're talking about with the psychological shift?
100%, you nailed it, exactly. When I realized that, like, food was actually to fuel your body and maybe to give you some pleasure some of the time, but that it was sustenance and not comfort, then I just started eating less without necessarily trying. I started eating closer to what my body required for fuel instead of what my soul required for comfort, and then I had to get that comfort from myself.
So how do you deal with, do you still have any struggles keeping weight off? Let me ask you that first.
Yes. When I have a particularly stressful period, if I'm doing a book launch or if my kid's going through something or if I'm traveling a lot, I will notice. So I have a tool that I use that Brooke teaches in her book, and it's called Eating from -2 to +2. So what that means is when I'm a little hungry, I eat, and when I'm pretty much just satiated, just sated, I stop eating. And when I notice, like when I'm traveling or I'm stressed and I'm waiting until I'm starving and I want to eat my arm to eat, or that I'm eating so much that I feel like I'm going to like throw up, I'm so full. When I do that once or twice, I realize, oh, I'm not eating to fuel my body. Something else is going on. And I can go right back and find those thoughts and do the work. So that happens weekly. But it used to happen like minutely. It was literally at every 5 minutes I was eating too much. And every 5 minutes I was making myself a promise. Like I would look up at the clock and I would be like, okay, I'm not going to eat for 10 more minutes. And then 7 minutes later I'd be eating and I would be like, well, it's okay because I'm not going to swallow. I'll just hold it in my mouth until another 3 minutes go by. Like I was making these crazy promises and my whole life was driven by these weird food promises. And so now
Yeah,
that doesn't happen at all.
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, it's funny, like the more you think about food, it's like, oh, I can't eat because I shouldn't eat. I don't want to eat. The hungrier you get. Am I right? I think it's like somebody is trying to quit smoking. The more I think about, well, I'm not going to have a cigarette. I'm not going to have a cigarette. The pack's right over there. But I'm not going to have it. Oh, wait a second, maybe I will.
I'll just have one more, and then tomorrow I'm going to throw these out, and I'm going to start fresh. It was broken promise after broken promise. And like the worst part of my struggle is that when I first learned these tools, I gained weight for the first couple years because they were really hard to learn. Like I didn't want to do this stuff. I didn't want to feel my feelings. I didn't want to know what I was thinking. A lot of this had to do with like confronting people. I ended a lot of friendships. I changed my business structure. I moved. I got a divorce. Like everything in my life changed because I was finally being honest with what was and wasn't okay with me. I was setting boundaries physically with my weight because I wasn't setting boundaries like in my heart.
Well, I was going to say that I totally understand about how getting in touch with your feelings is a very emotional process. Like I said, I had to do that when I wrote the memoir, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I was a basket case, and I know that you had authors that have worked with you that tell similar stories. It's like the more it's tough. Now I want to take a minute. There's a couple of people that made some comments on the chat. We actually have some live viewers. I'm really excited about that. Yay! Like Pat wanted to point out that your comment about eating for sustenance rather than for comfort is very powerful and probably something we should, I'm sure it's been turned into memes on Facebook and Instagram and all that. Also,
I want to jump
another
in
one,
on that because I think this is really
sure.
important. Brooke talks about 10% of your eating should be joy eat. She calls it joy eating or pleasure eating. And so a beautiful anniversary dinner with your partner, you shouldn't have to sit there and be counting calories or being worried if you're, eating the right thing or there's too much butter or there's not enough salt or whatever. So she definitely encourages 10% of what you eat to be total pleasure, chocolate, salty, whatever it is that's your thing. But the thing we don't ever compromise on is the fullness factor. So if you're ever eating past a +2 or past the place where you feel full, if you're in pain because you've eaten too much, that's actually a form of self-sabotage. That's a way of punishing yourself. And so very rarely do I let myself get very full. And when I do that, I immediately figure out why, because there's no reason to punish yourself with food. You can have one bite and be totally satisfied. And I will order the biggest dessert. I mean, it can be a brownie sundae for 15. If I want it, I'll order it, and I'll have one bite or 2 bites or 3 bites or whatever it takes until I'm at a +2, and then I stop and I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I hate the feeling of overeating, but sometimes what you're eating is just so good. And I have a high metabolism, so I'm very lucky that way, and I know I appreciate that I am very lucky that way. But I understand about, and I don't like the feeling of being too full, but sometimes you don't realize that it's happening until you get there.
Right.
But my husband and I actually will order a dessert at a restaurant and we'll share it, we split it. Because I have fewer issues with my weight. He's not heavy, but it definitely helps in controlling his intake. I wanted to mention that somebody else made a comment about family. She says she comes from an Italian background where sharing food, sharing a large meal, is part of how you show love and friendship. And so what happens if you have people who love you that are shoving food at you all the time?
Yeah, so we're Paisan. I'm all Italian too, and there is a lot of food in my family, and that was one of the big lessons, and that's why I say we set boundaries with our bodies to hold people back, and I had to learn to like express those things. So I would, whenever my family was eating, I would put everything on my plate. So I never wanted like a special plate or special treatment or the diet platter or you guys have this amazing meal, I'll just heat up a lean cuisine, which you have to understand, I spent 20 years heating up Nutrisystem and Jenny Craig and, Weight Watchers meals, so everyone would have their meal, and then, the fat girl would have the fat girl meal. And I did not do that. That is not what Brooke teaches. So I would pile my plate to the sky, and then I would pick at it like a little bird. And the thing that helped me the most was seeing how many other people do that. So I would go to business lunches, and I would think you have to eat everything you order. And then I would look around, and there would always be a couple people, you're probably one of them, Dawn, that would like order something, and they would eat like a third of it and have the rest of it packed up. And this was like a revelation to me. Like I had no idea that people didn't always finish their meal. I never got that memo in my family. So I got really good at being like, oh yeah, she's one of those people who really doesn't, she eats like a bird. She doesn't finish much. And that was what I changed the thought to in my head. So I had the thought, this is how my family's showing love. It would be rude not to finish. And I changed it to, oh, she's one of those people that eats like a bird. And that's how I would always think. I still do it. I still play that tape in my head. Like, especially if I'm going to eat more than I want, I'm like, oh, but I forgot I eat like a bird. I'm one of those girls that eats like a bird.
Well, it is a little easier in a restaurant to pack up food and take home rather than, when you're at a family gathering at somebody's house with the cooking. But I will say that actually, yeah, that's one of the things I love about going out to eat is that I eat about half. And I eat half not because, I'm only going to eat half so I can take the rest home. It's because I'm no longer hungry. But I tell you, I just love leftovers because guess what? That's my lunch the next day. I don't have to make a sandwich. Now, real quick, before we come back to you, because we have a couple of more things I want to share, but I have a photo of a before and after picture of you, and I wanted to share it because I think it's very powerful. And so, this is Angela at her most. And then the other picture is probably about how you look now.
Yeah, that's about it. That's a pretty recent picture. I was speaking at an event a couple months ago. And I still like the dress. It's the same dress.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
It's so a 5X, but it still fits me with a belt.
Oh, so you just put a belt on it. You didn't like have a whole big piece of it removed. You just put a belt on it?
No. But it used to be really short. It was more like a shirt. Now it goes down past my knees.
Well, that's pretty awesome. So my next question, and this one's an important one, and actually you've done this quite a bit already, but I'm gonna state it as a question and have you come up with a real succinct way to say it. For people that do feel insecure about their weight today, and there's a lot of people out there that do, what would be an action step, something that they could do today, right now? What is something that they could succeed at and start to feel better about themselves? What is your piece of advice for them?
It's a great question. So one of the most powerful things that Brooke taught me was she had me identify when I was actually hungry. And she had this exercise where you made 3 sandwiches at the beginning of the day. And they could be anything. So it could be, like I think I did an egg salad sandwich, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and a turkey and cheese sandwich. And then she has you cut them into quarters. And every time that you feel hungry, take a quarter of that sandwich, which is probably like 3 bites, and eat that and notice how full you are. So usually if you're just starting to feel hungry, you're at about a -2. And if you eat about a quarter of a sandwich, you'll get to 0. And then if you eat another quarter, you might get to 2. And if you can stay between just hungry and just satiated for one day, it's about 3 sandwiches. So over the course of a day, now what this works out to, ironically, is those 6 small meals of 100 calories. Everyone's talking about the 6 small meals of like 100 to 300 calories. Well, there's the 6 small meals. They're each like a half a sandwich, right? And if you spread them out throughout the day and basically have a half a sandwich every 2 to 4 hours, you're totally satisfied. So you think you need a lot more food than you actually need, and the sandwich exercise was really like, it was only one day. I made 3 great sandwiches. Every single time I was hungry, I ate. And I was like, wow, I have a lot of stories about how much food I need. So that's like one quick little experiment you can try. And then obviously I totally recommend to everybody to go to Amazon and buy Brooke Castillo's If I'm So Smart, Why Can't I Lose Weight? But here's the trick, Dawn, I don't know if you know this, about 27% of people who buy books read them. So you cannot just buy Brooke's book. You are going to have to open it, read it, and complete the exercises. If you do that, it will change your life. If you simply buy it and put it on your bookshelf, it will be less effective. So that would be my second tip.
Well, unless you use it, buy a whole stack of them and use it for weightlifting.
There
Maybe
you
that
go.
might help.
That's one way. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I just shared it. I actually shared it earlier, and I shared it again so that people could see the title and see the book, and I should be on screen. There we go. Sometimes I forget to switch. So, Angela, I want to thank you so much for being here today. We have a handful of people that are watching this live, and I'm very grateful for all of you to be here. And for those who watch it in the replay, hallelujah, thank you for tuning in. Are there any more questions? There's a delay on asking questions, so make sure if you have something else you want to ask Angela, type it on in. Angela is very accessible. While I'm waiting for questions, I'm just going to say, if you're interested in what she does for people who want to write books, it's theauthorincubator.com, right? With the
Theauthorincubator.com, yep.
Yeah, or Difference Press. You can look under Difference Press, or you can. I imagine if you Google Angela Lauria, she's going to pop up in all these places.
You'll find something.
Yeah, definitely, because you're kind of out there. And,
so I don't normally talk about weight loss in this way, but it does very much influence what I do with books. Like so much of what I learned and why I have the job I have and why I'm doing the work I'm doing in the world is because of my weight loss journey. And so I will say, if anybody is listening and they are in pain and they walk by, I remember walking by CVS at the mall near my house. I used to work at the mall. And in order to get to the shoe store where I worked, I had to walk by the CVS that was all mirrors. The whole outside was mirrors. And I used to do anything to avoid seeing my fat body in the CVS mirror in the mall. And so I know how much it can hurt, and I also know that it can be a window not just to your healing, but really to the work you were meant to do in the world. I know without my weight journey, I would never be doing this job, and there are hundreds of books that wouldn't have gotten into the world in the way that they did if I didn't have a 20-year struggle of losing and gaining 100 pounds 5 times.
Well, I am certainly grateful that we have met and we have done work together. It's been very beneficial for me, and I know that we'll be working together later this year for sure.
I know. I can't wait for your next book.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it here, but I'm starting to work on it, and hopefully I will have it already partly done before I officially join the program. But that's my cheat. Anyway, Christina writes and says, well, thank you very much for sharing. So it's nice to know that what we're doing has value to people. And I'm really excited that people are interested in what we have to say. And in trying to, I mean, we're trying to help people solve problems. That's really what it's all about. And Angela, she talks about her author stuff all the time. So I am just totally thrilled that she agreed to come on and talk about something totally different. I'm sure it was kind of refreshing for her too.
I did. I kept forgetting. Every time you'd send me a reminder, I would give you like questions or things about books. You're like, but we're not talking about books. I'm like, right. Weight loss. Got it.
Yeah, I know. I had to tell your assistant that too. It's like, no, Jesse, this is not what we're talking about. But do you have any closing comments? I don't see any more. I mean, you've already made some wonderful comments, but I'm going to give you one last chance before I go into my conclusion. So
I just want people to know it is possible not to hate yourself, and it looks different. That journey looks so different than I thought it did from the inside of the torture chamber. So it's not necessarily a fast process, but no matter what your story is about how terrible your physical situation is, you know, I thought I looked like a monster. I hated how I looked so much. And it took a long time, and it took a major commitment, and I had to give up on looking any other way. But that journey was so worth it. Like going into the darkness. I feel like it's Heart of Darkness. It really felt like that. But it's the hero's journey, and it is so worth it. The other side exists. I know it doesn't feel that way, but keep going forward.
yeah, thank you so much because, I mean, you know, when you have a face that's different, it really stands out. And I mean, you were never, I mean, your face has always been attractive. And yet, it's all, a lot of people, it's how they feel on the inside. I mean, you can have somebody who a lot of people could look at and say she could be a model or a beauty queen. And yet, if she does not feel beautiful, then she is not in her own mind beautiful. And that's all it takes. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. All right, then. So I just want to say that my next webinar is going to be on Tuesday, April 7th at noon Pacific. That's 3 p.m. Eastern with Leticia Moreno. It's called Tragedy to Triumph, The Power of Personal Choice. Leticia studies decision-making triggers, how the choices that people make influence their success or failures in their given life situations. And I also want everyone to remember that it's always important to be kind to other people. Kindness goes a long way. And never, ever, ever forget to be kind to yourself. With that, I will.
Love, we are one. We are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace. We are war. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.